I've always been fascinated with the underwater world since I was a little girl. I wrote tons of papers on underwater photography in college and really wished I could do that every day. But it always stayed in the back of my mind because I live 600 miles away from the nearest ocean. So it just stayed there. 2 years ago, I met Karen Bagley, and she is an underwater high fashion portrait photographer. And she is really doing some amazing things down there. One day she posted on Facebook that she was going to do an underwater workshop, and I was ecstatic. She was going to have it in Atlanta, and it was going to be Father's Day weekend, and it was like, ah! I was already planning on being down there that weekend to visit Jake. So it was like fate. So I signed up for the class and told Jake I was going to do it. And he agreed to watch the kids with my mom's help, of course. But I got to go. So the night before class, I did not sleep very well. I was too excited. When that alarm finally went off, I was like jumping for joy because my dream was coming true. Icolite sponsored the event, so we got to use some of their amazing gear, which is they have an underwater housing, which is just like a case for the cameras. And one of my biggest fears was like I'd be out there in the ocean and then I'd drop it and then I'd just watch it sing ding 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 ding. But I found out that they float, so I was ecstatic. So that was one big sigh of relief for me. Another thing that I liked about the Icolite housing was that I could still have all the functions that I would shoot above water, underwater. So I could still change everything that I wanted to. When I'm using a bag, which is bulky, it doesn't float, and a pain because you're constantly fighting it, it's not as easy. Underwater photography already has its challenges in itself, but fighting your gear just isn't worth it. So I cannot wait to upgrade to the new Icolite. So going underwater for that first time, holding the camera in the professional gear and going under was a dream come true. It was completely mesmerizing. So I was shaking and I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And I go under and it's just magic. I can do whatever I want. And then at that point I knew I was destined to do this. So after I got the excitement of the experience out of the way, that's when I started to think, how can I make this shot better? So I played with the fabric more and more and more. And I'm like, I really want it to come towards me. I want the fabric in my face. And then I want her to move like she's a dancer. And I wanted to see these the big sleeves of that dress move. And she did great at listening to what I was wanting her to do. So we got that amazing shot that I wanted. It was crazy to see how fast a pool can go from crystal clear to murky. And it's just from a little bit of sunscreen and hair products, so we won't be using those during our sessions. The best waters to shoot in are saltwater pools, natural springs, and the ocean. So chlorine will hurt the dresses, so we want to stick with the saltwater pools, and that won't hurt your dresses or any of the materials that we put underwater. Only good swimmers are going to be able to do these shoots, because once that dress gets heavy or wet, it becomes very heavy. One thing I was nervous about was editing. Like, I've taken pictures underwater in the bag, but they always seemed really blue and really like flat. And I was like, I would try to edit it, but I didn't know what I was doing. That's because the light is completely different underwater than it is above water. So I was trying to do my best to fix it, but I just didn't know it. And it wasn't something difficult. It's just something I needed to retrain my brain to learn. And I picked it up very quickly, which was great. But I used their gear, and my computer wasn't up to date on all the software. And I couldn't put the card in and to see my picture, so I was a little bummed. But all I had to do was come home and update my computer to get the photos. So I just had to wait a couple days to see them because I was planning on staying down there with Jake and my dad to visit with them for a while. So on the way back, I get a notification from Karen and I'm like, oh, what's this? So I look and it has, okay, hold on. Let's rewind a little bit. During the class, she let me hold her camera, which was amazing. Hers was the top of the line version, and she had a wider dome on the front and a wider lens. So when you went under it, you could see the entire pool, which was amazing. And I'm like, well, that's cool. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna shoot a couple like behind the scenes shots just because I got the camera and it's no big deal. And I took some with that and I was like, whew, I love this. And then so back to that Facebook notification, she made my photo that I took of her cover photo. And I was ecstatic. I just couldn't believe it. I just thought, you know, she would post it like on the post, but she made it a cover photo. It's not really that big of a deal, but to me, I hadn't seen any of my photos, so to find out one of my photos was credited for me that I took during the class was her cover photo. So it was pretty exciting for me, and I will never forget that an amazing experience with a bunch of good group of girls. And I cannot wait to start doing this underwater adventure here in the Midwest. If you're interested in learning more about underwater photography shots by me around here, check out the next video. Thanks, guys.